to Heroes Forge, a Heroes of the Storm podcast.
What's up, Forgers? Welcome to Season 2, Episode number 95 of Heroes Forge, a community-driven podcast all about Heroes of the Storm. As always, this podcast is brought to you by our outstanding supporters on patreon.com/HeroesForge. This is your show host, the Slytherin, Jeff Reynolds, and I'm here with the co-host of the show, who is a Gryffindor, and also more awesome than a pre-BlizzCon Amove TV meetup. It's Kristen Ashton.
Well, heck yes. I'm the single solo reason this meetup is happening. No, that is not true. It is everybody who is a part of Amove TV, and Frog Pants as well will also be there. And you're going to be there too, Jeff. What's the count for BlizzCon?
We got 4 days. 4 days till BlizzCon, and what a better way to celebrate only 4 days left than to have our Halloween special on the show, Heroes Forge. If you remember last year, we got all dressed up. This year, we put a vote out on Twitter, and we said, what do you want to see us do? It ended in a tie, Kristen.
It did. We had 4 options, and it ended up being a tie between our Hogwarts house alumni-nus or members of the Lollipop Guild, which would have included a song, but it ended up being Harry Potter that won out.
That's right. So I'm representing the Slytherin over here, and Kristen, you're representing Gryffindor?
Yes, I am. And I think it is a great, great thing that we have such a break, right? Because how boring is it to have 2 hosts that love the same things? But when it comes to us, we like different things, but we don't hate each other. You know, it's kind of like Avatar, Last Airbender. Aang had friends in the Fire Nation 100 years before the Fire Nation destroyed everything. So if we're able to see past that and the humanity in everybody, we can all be friends.
Absolutely. That was very well said. Now, we have a couple of announcements before we move on to some other things that are happening. First and foremost is with BlizzCon coming next week, there will be no Prime episode of Heroes Forge next Sunday because we'll all be traveling, moving around. Maybe you'll be at Disneyland that day. Who knows if you're out here in Anaheim. So there will be no Prime episode next week coming. It's the one episode that we miss a year. But also you should know that because of the Con Before the Storm World of Podcast panel that's happening, they are opening us up to the audio that is available for that recording of that panel, which I am so honored to be a part of this year. So when we get that audio recording of the World of Podcasts, we're going to throw that up on our feed, Kristen, so that everybody can listen to that as well.
And it's going to be a ton of fun. There's some great names up there, and Scott Johnson is acting as moderator again this year. He did a fantastic job last year. So I can only imagine the wonderful questions you'll be getting this year.
Super excited. So keep an eye on that. It'll be on the Heroes Forge feed, and it'll probably be on any of your other favorite Heroes of the Storm podcast feed as well. That brings us to the Amove TV meetup. It is at the Anaheim Hilton at 9 p.m. in the Palos Verdes room. And that is actually, I mean, it's literally probably, 50 steps from the entrance of the Anaheim Convention Center. So if you're staying somewhere nearby, if you're coming to the convention, we want to see you at this meetup and come and say hi.
Yeah, it's going to be a great time. It's free, except for the bar. The bar is cash, so if you need a little liquid courage before we sit down and chat, come prepared.
I will be having myself some liquid courage as well. It's going to be a great night. Come and check it out. And if you want to check out the Con Before the Storm World of Podcasts panel live, that'll also be at the Hilton right next door to where the meetup will be. But that one starts at 8:30 for the Heroes of the Storm panel. Okay. Kristen, I wanted to do this because I thought, you know what? We got to do it. We got to have a BlizzCon predictions episode of Heroes Forge, and what better one to do it than 4 days before we start. So what I challenged us to do here tonight is to kind of set the scene, is if we were describing the cutscene or the cinematic that will happen at BlizzCon, what we think it will be. Now, as I was writing this, I was thinking, is this something that I think it will be, or is this something that I really want it to be?
But what's the difference with these predictions, right? The predictions are deep down what we want to see. And if they happen to be right, then we get bragging rights.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm going to get this thing started off. So the scene, it's set. It's a winter landscape. Music is playing in the background and we see Arthas injured on the battlefield. Snow flitters as he's bleeding out. He looks to be one step from death, holding Frostmourne with his hands, clutching to life, quote unquote. We can tell that Arthas is inside a fort covered with snow. We hear a pounding on the other side of the wall. This pounding keeps getting louder and louder. Finally, the wall comes crashing down and a huge siege engine driven by Gazlo starts smashing its way towards the bleeding out Arthas. As this happens, we can hear a familiar voice coming to us as a voiceover over this charging siege engine. The voice says, "Adventurer, I have seen many things, but no situation as grave as the one before us today. Take up your sword, learn from the past, defend what is dear to you as I once did. And one day, this tale will aid our allies, no matter the outcome." When the voiceover ends, we see a large tome dropped in front of Arthas in the snow. The pages begin to flutter past and a demonic magic seems to be emanating from its pages. This magic makes its way to Arthas, seeming to giving him some power of the past, and we see him stand up. Arthas points his sword at the siege engine that has been smashing its way to him this entire time. After a deep breath, he says, "Stay a while and listen." He charges the siege engine and cuts a huge hole in the side of it, disabling it. The siege engine explodes and Arthas charges past, cutting through a line of minions behind it. We then see Deckard Cain behind Arthas, who points at a newly formed line of foes behind the siege engine that was disarmed. We see Tracer, Jaina, and Stukov ready to receive Arthas' attacks. But before they do, a huge hulking armored hero steps forward and says, "Come, fight me!" It's Reinhardt, and he deploys a shield to protect his team. Arthas is then joined by Deckard, Sonya, Uther, and Artanis. Deckard turns to Arthas and says, "Learn from the past." Arthas looks up and overhead as the snow falls. We hear a large screech and Alexstrasza flies overhead towards the enemy. Both teams charge at each other, and right before they connect, we see the Heroes of the Storm logo. So my predictions here, 3 new heroes, Deckard Cain, Alexstrasza, and Reinhardt, with a new Battleground and Warcraft event themed after Wintergrasp, which I kind of see, this is way outside the box here, that it would be like a rush map where there's a defense team and an attacking team. The attackers have to capture the enemy's Titan relic in the enemy's fortress while capturing goblin workshops along the way before the timer runs out.
Oh, that would be nuts. That's basically like Blizzard wheeling out a little slideshow of, you want this hero in the Nexus? Click. You want that hero in the Nexus? Click. We know you've been waiting for this one, and everyone's losing their minds. You're like, you get a hero. You get your hero. Everybody gets their hero.
Can you imagine what it would be like in that auditorium when that thing dropped? If that crazy cutscene actually happened? Who knows? Kristen, hit us with your predictions.
It would bring down the house. And yes, let me go ahead and jump on this one. All right. The landscape is barren. Scorched earth and smoke so thick you can almost feel yourself suffocating. Through the haze, you see the silhouette of the long-awaited Deathwing. Looking closer, the charred remains of minions and heroes. None could stand in his way. The victor takes a stance, ready to bellow over his domain, a cry of triumph never to be forgotten by the few unlucky souls left alive. A light flashes from behind us, interrupting Deathwing. Sounds like another has entered the Nexus. But how could that be? Squinting, the massive dragon pounds his way through the smoke. He stops, sniffing something in the air. A shadow looms through the smoke. Is it another like he? As the creature gets closer, the shadow shrinks. It's a mouse. A mouse. Deathwing is not confused by much, but this has him stopped dead in his tracks. Regardless, what's a mouse going to do? Deathwing turns his back and proceeds to leave. "Boy, look who it is!" echoes through the air as a bright-eyed, bushy-bearded innkeeper bursts onto the scene, clearing clearing away the smoke. Deathwing is at a loss for words as a song begins. Little creatures from Hearthstone deck start sweeping away the mess. Deathwing tries to catch and stop them, but they're just too happy and protected by ooey gooey goodness that his evil is no match. After the song ends, the battlefield is restored to its former Hearthstone board glory. Cut to gameplay of both heroes and raucous noise from the audience. So I'm saying it's going to be Deathwing, it's going to be the Innkeeper. We're going to have a Hearthstone board where we have spawn points at the 4 corners that activate based on a timer. The objective fires shots and it does damage, very similar to how you deal damage in Hearthstone. And the Nexus points, the home bases, are at the top and bottom instead of left and right. And the camps drop things like armor, heals, and polymorphs.
Nice! This is great! I thought you were going to troll us there for a second and you were going to say that it was Deathwing just wasn't coming. Like, it's just part of Hearthstone. It's actually the Innkeeper. No Deathwing!
Well, I'm scared, right? I'm scared there's going to be a weird mixing of cool stuff and kid-friendly stuff. And there's a thin line to walk between cool and kid-friendly. So this would be great at the start, and then suddenly we're in a Disney film, and I would be very confused. But I would be ultimately excited to have a dragon.
I hope all of this stuff happens for our BlizzCon. I hope it all happens and more. Regardless, there's going to be some amazing things happening at BlizzCon. Send us your ideas of what you think's going to happen. You can always shoot us a tweet with what you think your predictions will be. And if you're at BlizzCon, don't forget to meet up with us at the Amove TV meetup. All right, Kristen, let's do what we're here to do tonight, and let's forge.
Let's forge.
We're wrapping up our Heroes Halloween hashtag here, where we're doing what do you say? Popular horror icons throughout all of the feature films that we know and love for this season. And we've done lots of really cool things, including Dracula, Jaws, Krampus, Samara from The Ring. And tonight we're bringing it all together and back to the Blizzard universe, where we're talking about the Headless Horseman.
We are America because he is an American invention. He is an American horror icon that's kind of spread across the world because the story itself is just so intoxicating.
Yeah, it's very intoxicating, and why it's prevalent in so many different stories, cultures, like all of these things. Tons of movies have been made about the Headless Horseman. He's obviously in World of Warcraft. He's already in Heroes of the Storm in a way. So why not make him a playable hero? That was part of all of this. And, Ro sent us a tweet from Realm Maintenance saying, I'm hoping that the Headless Horseman would be one of the people that you forge on your show. Well, guess what, Ro? This is for you. We're talking about the Headless Horseman tonight. Kristen, why don't you give us a little backstory on this creepy character?
Will do. First appearing in The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, a short work of fiction written by Washington Irving in 1820, the Headless Horseman has gone on to become one of America's legendary spooks. Rumored to be a Hessian that lost his head to a cannonball during the Revolution, it is said he now stalks the area around Sleepy Hollow at night, forever in search of his lost appendage. While the original story followed schoolteacher Ichabod Crane's run-in with the ghostly apparition, later iterations have taken this character down a very interesting creative path.
Absolutely. We've seen tons of different paths for the Headless Horseman, or what he would be. I mean, I know the Sleepy Hollow film with Johnny Depp in it is a different way of thinking about how this all happens. And then there's the Warcraft lore behind this too is just crazy.
It is. So what is the Warcraft lore? That's one I actually didn't look into.
Well, I do know that, it's around the same type of thing. It's been quite a while since I've gone after that Headless Horseman mount inside of World of Warcraft. And, back when I used to just grind it out, I'm not super familiar with the story, but the fact that it is more of a World of Warcraft take on it, meaning that it's a more cartoon version of this character who clearly has a very dark backstory here with having his head supposedly blown off by a cannonball.
Well, one of those things of the American Revolution, because I even saw it in The Patriot, Mel Gibson's flick about it. So that's something that makes me wonder, if back in 1820 there were stories of men losing their heads to cannonballs, was that a common thing? And was it even more common to have local ghost stories around such a grisly death?
Gosh, I don't know. It's a nasty death, right? I mean, it'd probably be quick.
Yeah, I mean, if maybe not even a full second.
No,
it's there and then it's gone.
Which is what it can feel like when you're fighting the Headless Horseman in Heroes of the Storm. I mean, let's be real. He is the hardest hitting boss in the game out there. If you're standing in the wrong spot, you're getting hit.
Oh yeah, that ground area effect is just killer. And then of course he's got the head flying around, and if that hits you, you got about 3 hits to get out of the way before it's GG.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it took a while for me to know how hard that was. I mean, I just kept seeing, right when the Towers of Doom came out, what was it, 2 years ago? It was 2 BlizzCons ago that they announced Towers of Doom. Was it? Yeah, it wasn't last year. It must have been the year. It was the Cho'Gall year.
You're right, because last year was Varian and Ragnaros.
Yeah, so at that BlizzCon when we're playing it, trying to go in there and take the Headless Horseman, because we all just wanted to see what the Headless Horseman was all about, because we wanted it, at least I wanted it to be a playable character, so I was kind of bummed out that it wasn't. But still, this is really cool idea to be able to imagine what he would be like if he was in the Nexus as a playable character that you could actually draft and play. So that's what we do on the show, is we're kind of going to just talk through 2 different kits that Kristen and I both made here to kind of imagine what that would be like. So let's get started with Kristen's kit tonight. And the first thing we always talk about is, what would because this is the Heroes Halloween, let's talk a little bit about what we've been going through the last month. What would the Headless Horseman's favorite Blizzard game be?
This one I knew immediately off the top of my head. I think he would love Rock and Roll Racing, because he always chases down his victims. He loves it. He'd
be a huge fan of Rock and Roll Racers.
Yes,
and when he's not playing Rock and Roll Racers, he's playing Star Wars Pod Racing.
Exactly. He loves beating Sebulba, but at the same time, he likes using Sebulba's pod.
Absolutely. Yeah, because wasn't that the fastest one? I think it was.
I think so, if memory serves, but it's a pretty splashy memory.
What, 20 years ago? Don't quote us on that one. Great, so Rock and Roll Racing. Bravo, very well done. Now, who is his favorite Blizzard character?
Himself.
Done.
Well, I mean, you're already in a Blizzard game. Why wouldn't you love yourself? I mean, maybe Illidan, right? I don't think Illidan would consider himself to be his favorite character. He'd probably play a lot of Tyrande.
Illidan's probably a Slytherin.
Oh yeah, totally. With that attitude, he is. The hat wouldn't even hit his head, and he would be in Slytherin.
What do you mean, that attitude?
Well, the stereotype goes that Slytherins are very dour, I dare to say emo folk.
Don't look at my hair tonight. Emo hair. All right, let's talk about some stuff here that's actually serious with the Horseman. What role classification are you going with if you bring him into the Nexus?
I want him to be an assassin. Full-blown, straight up, kick enemy heroes out of the game.
Totally, and that's exactly what I went with as well. Gotta be an assassin. You feel that when you fight him as a boss. He's hard-hitting. He doesn't have a ton of health. It's not hard to bring him down. So I felt assassin as well. What trait goes along with that?
Trait, I'm going with you shall not pass. Whether Hessian or some other spirit, it is canon that the Headless Horseman cannot cross an old wooden bridge near the local church. In keeping with the tales, the Headless Horseman cannot pass by enemy buildings. Instead, he is stopped by an invisible barrier until the buildings are destroyed.
Oh, interesting. So this sounds like it would be a detriment as a trait.
Sort of, right? unless you're winning or you're outsmarting the enemy in some way. But yeah, absolutely.
All right. So, I mean, I'm assuming that because his trait, I mean, that's a cool thought to have altogether here, is to think about if we take something away from a character with something like this trait, can we make them stronger?
We would have to, I think. There would be a necessity to balance out the inability of this character to push past a certain point unless X requirements are met.
Totally. Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. So this is really cool. So when you say that he can't pass the building, so let's say that there is one tower as part of the wall that's still in place. The rest of the tower and the other walls and the gate are destroyed. He can't pass that tower at all then.
Correct.
And is this limited to the lane that the Headless Horseman is in, or is it the entire map?
Oh, it would be limited to just that lane.
Okay, cool. So if the bottom lane was pushed out, he could go further in the bottom lane and then each other lane respectively.
Correct.
Okay, rock and roll. I can't wait to see what we're getting for this this price we're paying with the trade. I love it. What's your idea on his mounting? I mean, let's be real here. I mean, he's the Headless Horseman, so
what's a headless man without his horse?
Exactly.
I would call it Flash of Fire. It would kind of have its own thing. In one encounter, it is said that the Headless Horseman vanished in a flash of fire. In the Nexus, the horseman will mount up, explode into flames, and then take off, leaving behind him a trail of fiery hoofprints. In addition, he is always mounted. His horse can trot at walk speed, and it takes a mount-up time to return to mount speed.
Nice. So you're saying that he also has a global here. Is that what you're saying? Like he can take off into the air and land somewhere like a Falstad with those fiery hoofprints? Or is he just moving at a faster rate?
Oh, he's just moving mounted speed. It's just the effect to get him into that mounted move speed. So if someone summons the mount and then goes, that's what that would be. The explosion of fire. And then it goes regular mounted speed.
Nice.
You just see it with the footprints.
I love it. And that's so cool. I mean, we even see that in Heroes right now with when he turns into the shots after you defeat him, the core shots. It's basically like an explosion like that. And then he turns into the shots, laughs, and you can see the gates open up behind him. And that's where the actual, ammunition comes out of.
Yeah, exactly. So a little more flavor there. And I mean, with this build straight up, I'm definitely pulling more from the Irving's Tale than I am Warcraft. But I did pull some things from Warcraft. Totally.
Nice. Very cool. Oh, I love that because I actually went a whole lot of Warcraft stuff. So I love that. Again, Slytherin and Gryffindor.
Right? Two sides to the same coin.
What's your cue?
The cue is Flaming Heads. A rotating AoE, the horseman shoots out 3 flaming pumpkin heads that rotate around him in circles, dealing basic attack damage if enemies are hit by the squash, or ability damage if they are hit by the rings of fire that the pumpkins leave in their wake.
Nice. So you're comboing here 2 different types of damage inside of one attack.
Exactly. I think that is a road will be going down sooner, if not later. An ability that does both types of damage, because this armor thing has really kind of thrown a wrench into how Heroes used to be played.
Absolutely. This is a really cool idea, and I'm so happy you came up with this because I do agree. After you said it, it's hard to think how we wouldn't be going down a road like this in the future. Like this is something that has to start coming in.
Yeah, totally. And I know with Heroes now, like Vala, for instance, you can choose ability with your abilities, or you just basic attack, but why can't we have abilities that you activate and you get to do both and have more of that in Heroes?
Oh, this is such a cool idea. And obviously iconic because of the, flaming heads basically, coming, following him around in a circle, right?
Yep, I wanted to capture that boss fight in Towers of Doom. That's probably my favorite bit when the heads go spinning around. It's awesome because then you have to hug him and you're fighting him on his horse.
It's fun. It's very fun. What's your second basic ability?
Right, the second one is called the Throwdown. If the Hessian gets close enough, he will pick up a target enemy hero and toss them to the ground in a certain direction. When the enemy hero lands, they are stunned.
Nice. So this is like a... So compare this to a Garrosh toss, right? So you're picking somebody up. So he's on his horse, right? And he's swooping down. Such a cool visual, right? He swoops down, grabs somebody. Is he throwing them straight down like where he's at right there? Or is he able to throw them a distance?
I'm imagining a distance. And I would imagine it would be he grabs the nape of the neck of that hero that he's picking up and his arm goes back, and that's the direction and kind of fits the distance that the enemy hero goes.
Nice. This is so cool. I mean, horse or mounted warfare, I should say, is something that I don't know if it would work in Heroes of the Storm. I'm gonna preface it with that. But man, I want it. I think that'd be so cool to have heroes that were able to fight mounted.
The visual alone would make it worth it. And who knows, maybe that's something with a dragon release they kind of been working with, right? Because dragons are enormous. They may as well be mounted combat units of sorts.
Who knows? Who knows? This is really cool. The Throwdown. I love the name too. What's your third basic ability?
And the third one is called Never Look Behind. While mounted, the horseman can cast this skill shot, taking his head from his body and hurling it at an enemy hero. If the enemy is struck in the back, they merely take a large amount of damage. If they are struck facing the horseman, they are stunned and blinded.
Oh, so cool. Okay, first question about this one is, what do you see the Headless Horseman's head being in this? Because I know you said you've got a vision of what this is, because in different lore it's different things. I mean, in Heroes it's like a floating mask that's like held up with green ethereal energy, you know, and then there are some films where the head is actually a jack-o'-lantern that he wears and can pop it off and throw it. What's your thought on this?
Oh, this is... I think there should be variations of the costume to kind of fit the fantasy you want of the horseman. And like you said, because there are so many, I really like the one where it's the horseman, he's missing his head, but he's got the jack-o'-lantern under his arm. But what if we go with the more hinted at ending where Brom Bones was pretending to be the Headless Horseman? So maybe the face is covered in a dark mask and it's just a dude holding this rotted pumpkin.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. It's all cool. I mean, and I love your idea about the skin variations, right? You could have all of these. They could just be skins of different, you know, looks and takes on the Headless Horseman.
Yeah, and we know they're not afraid to definitely give us color variations that are very, very clearly from classic anime that I think many of us have watched. So to have that to encompass varying parts of the fantasy, I think is a really cool way to pay a strong homage to such legendary characters.
Absolutely. And this is such a cool idea for this ability here with the fact of facing, right? Which direction are you facing? You know I'm a fan of this, Kristen, because I talked about it, I think it was even last week or the week prior to that. Facing. How can we mess with that in the Nexus? Like which direction you're looking when an ability comes at you. And your idea here is killer, no pun intended. So if it hits him in the back, it's better.
It's true. If they're running away... But that's that horror trope, right? You don't stop to turn around to check and see if you're still getting chased. You keep running. You don't walk over to what seems like a dead body and poke it with your hand. You're just going to get grabbed. You double tap it or you keep running and you don't stop.
You don't A-move your way over there if you're about to die.
A-moving is the worst possible thing you could do. This is a horror hero, and I think we should fit with some tropes.
I love it. Absolutely. Okay, so if they get hit in the face, then they're stunned and blinded.
Yes, and visually, I want the pumpkin, the rotted pumpkin to stick to their face. So they have an animation of peeling it off, and that's what the stun That's the blind.
Okay, so tell me, does the blind outlast the stun? Because obviously you can't do anything while you're stunned. So the blind maybe comes on after the stun or goes, longer?
Oh, that's a good question. I kind of want them to be the same length, but maybe there's a talent where you can choose which one lasts longer.
Cool. I love it. All right, let's get into the best part here. Let's talk about some heroics. What is your first heroic?
First one, we paid homage to the Headless Horseman and Towers of Doom, Cursed Ground. Pools, but it's going to be red fire, not green fire. Red fire open up on the ground beneath the feet of his enemies for the length of this heroic. They deal massive amounts of damage over time for those foolish enough to sit still.
Bam. I mean, it doesn't get any more Headless Horseman and simple than that, right? I mean, you got this green pool that's basically killing you.
Exactly. And I really want this to be these pools of light that you see the light before they pop. And they always appear where the enemies were standing for a period of time. It's something I saw in Dark Souls 3 that the mechanic was, it was challenging, very challenging. But once you learned about how to keep moving to avoid getting hit by these pops, it turned into a great, great fight.
That is really cool. Okay, so it also kind of really has a Heroes of the Storm boss feel to it. Like, when you're fighting the Grave Golem or whatever, and the roots come up or the stun circle comes up. So you know that this is coming. You have the opportunity to escape it. But if you don't, you take some serious damage. So with this, do you think the cooldown is short? Do you think he can use it often if he takes this?
I guess it depends on how powerful the pools end up being. Because if it's too short, you can spam an objective and nothing gets capped, your team reses, and you LOL your way to victory with some really cheesy stuff. So probably not too short.
Okay. No, I get what you're saying. Totally. And we are giving them an opportunity to get out of the circle, though, which is what makes me think maybe it's not, that crazy 180-second cooldown on it. Maybe it's like a 60-second.
Yeah, 60-second would totally work. I think that would be pretty fair.
I like it, and I think it totally feels like the Headless Horseman. Oh, I love the name of your next heroic. What is it?
It's called Run as fast as you can. Choosing an enemy target, the horseman pursues them, gaining on them by going faster and faster and faster. All the while, the enemy hero becomes more and more fearful, finding it more difficult to head anywhere but toward the safety of a friendly gate. If the enemy passes by one of their own gates, the ability ends with no harm done. If they don't, however, the horseman deals an enormous amount of damage by trampling the enemy hero. If the horseman can manage to do this to all 5 enemy heroes, the time it takes to close in on his prey is reduced and the damage is tripled.
Oh, this is so cool. I love it. This is like one of my favorite talents to take as Zul Jin is you have to kill every enemy hero one time and then you get a map reveal of where everybody is. And that's such a powerful tool to have in there and it's a challenging thing to do. So this is really neat on this and I love it. Riding towards the enemy, it totally has that Sleepy Hollow feel of this giant horse. I mean, you could even have like a ring wraith skin for something like this, just chasing down like the hobbits basically. You're just chasing them down.
Totally, and I love that idea of a ring wraith feel because that's what it is. Except luckily with this one too, you have the barriers that can defend you if you're smart enough with what you do. And if you're smart about your positioning on the map and paying attention to where the horseman is, right? Because I would imagine with this, you'd have to be close enough to an enemy hero to even cast it on them specifically.
Oh, yeah, and then you're talking about the combo with the rest of your abilities here. After you chase them down, I mean, you've got the flaming heads rotating around you. You got your second basic ability, which is that throwdown. You've chased them down. You've trampled them. They just get back up, get smacked by a flaming head, and then he reaches down and lifts you up by the nape and throws you back down into the mud. I mean, this is crazy. And then if you get up and try to run away again, you've got your other basic ability where he just hurls a jack-o'-lantern at you or a rotten pumpkin and it explodes and you're probably dead after that.
Probably, hopefully before that, just so the death isn't so insulting, but you know.
This is a really great kit, Kristen. I really like it. You did an awesome job of bringing together the lore of the actual Headless Horseman and what we know and love from World of Warcraft / Heroes of the Storm. If you had to sum it all up, what would you say?
Staying ahead of the competition.
Fantastic, fantastic. Before we move on to my kid over here, we have some people that we need to thank. We need to thank all of our patrons for supporting this show. Thank you so much for making things like the Heroes Halloween month happen for us. We couldn't do it without you. If you'd like to support the show too, you can head on over to our Patreon site, which is patreon.com/HeroesForge. And over there you can take a look at everything that we have going on for our patrons. And patrons, we have some really cool stuff planned for you. As soon as BlizzCon ends, we've got some stuff coming your way. So stay tuned and keep an eye on your inboxes. We're also coming up on a 100th episode. 5 more episodes until we get to our 100th episode, and we're in planning and works to make that the biggest and baddest episode of Heroes Forge, Kristen.
We are. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be a great time. We hope you're all here for that. I'm sure you will be because we love you and you love us. And happy early 100!
That's right. No spoilers. No spoilers. Thank you to everyone that's given us a 5-star review on iTunes as well. It really helps the show grow. If you listen to us on iTunes, drop us a 5-star review and make sure you leave your name because we'll give you a shout out right here at this part of the show next time. All right, here we go, Kristen. So I said I went with an assassin as well, and my trait over here is called Arise. So the fantasy with this Headless Horseman kit is that he's a fast-moving assassin that deals large amounts of ability damage to the enemy. So really similar to what you were talking about before. This trait, however, allows him to maintain a mounted position the entire game and have the increased movement speed buff for the entire match. This will make him a fast force to be reckoned with that cannot be dismounted.
Nice. So we're thinking a cooler Lucio who kills maybe just as fast?
Yes. Are you talking about our experiences in the Team League stream that we had on Saturday, which was a total blast?
Well, sort of. Right? I just don't want to be little Lucios because there are amazing Lucios who have just wrecked me straight up, and I didn't know I could die that fast to a Lucio. So I'm trying to be respectful.
Yes. So yes, he's just charging the battlefield, right? He cannot be dismounted. It's part of his being is this horse, which I think it's super iconic, even though it would be pretty badass to see him jump off the horse at some point and start, wailing on people.
But, I mean, what are ults for, if not for realizing such dreams?
Absolutely. There's a third ultimate choice for the Headless Horseman, and it's that one right there. So his mount would obviously be the Headless Horseman's charger. He needs his horse, but also, skin variations. We'll see. So this first basic ability is called Conflagration. I had to put the phonetic way of saying that on my notes because I've been saying this wrong. Conflagration. Conflagration. See, I still can't even say it right.
Yeah, great job. You got it.
Thank you for the support, Kristen.
Yeah.
So the horseman raises his sword and it lights on fire with the green ember. That's right. I'm going with the Slytherin green here.
It's fair. It's fair.
The next attack that the horseman lands on an enemy will give them a debuff that works like a burning rage, but it damages their friendly team members or minions, not the enemy team. So they're getting a burning rage, but it doesn't hurt the people they want it to hurt.
That I am all on board with. I love burning rage. Whenever I'm Muradin and I can get away with it, I am always taking burning rage. So turning this into a debuff, I love it. I mean, how clear would the debuff be? And how much damage over time? How long are you thinking it would last?
This would be not very long. So it wouldn't last for very long, but it would look just like a burning rage looks in the game right now. It would work the exact same way that it does, except it's hurting your friends, and it would be green instead of red.
I really like this idea too, because not only is it burning rage, but the fun burning rage, even funner than before. It's something too that is very target specific, right? You don't want to put it on a tracer because she's not going to be hanging out in the middle of everything. You want one of those mid-range heroes that always needs to be hugged and encircled.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe like a Morales or something like that. That's always going to be near if they want to do healing, or the tank maybe. Who knows? But that's what you can do with that first one. The second basic ability is called Unholy Fire. So this ability has 2 charges, and it allows the horseman to select a bush or event on the battlefield and light it on fire. This fire will deal a large amount of damage to any enemies inside the bush or event, or any enemies that go inside while it's on fire. The fire will burn for a good amount of time, and the entire vent or bush will be on fire. So if it's a big, long, like on Dragonshire, that big, long bush there, you can actually light that whole thing, and the whole thing will light up.
Oh, so talk about zone control. And how much damage are you thinking this would do? Would it be enough to deter the squishier heroes?
I think that in order to make this a worthwhile ability, you would have to make it do a serious amount of damage, because it's so counterable in the respect of just don't stand in a bush. But really, though, we use that a lot when we play the game. Like, they can't see us here. They can't see us here. We're going to go up here, So to have to think about that a little harder, I think is worthwhile, especially if this is really going to wreck you if you don't.
Yeah, definitely. And would it give sight?
Yeah. Let's say that it gives a little bit of sight. Not a whole lot to the whole lane. And it's also not global. So you wouldn't be doing it from the bottom to the top lane. You'd still have a big range, and the horseman would have to be there. So if you lit it on fire and left, he would still have a little bit of sight, but nothing crazy.
Totally. And then what's the visual? I mean, how is this getting lit on fire?
Oh, well, he's definitely got some sort of, a flaming jack-o'-lantern that he just throws into the bush or the vent, and it explodes into I like the green fire.
Yeah, no, totally. There's nothing wrong with liking the green fire. Nothing at all. It's a personal preference of mine that I like the red fire. But I respect the green fire, and I think fire of all colors is really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe it changes. That's how we do it. That also changes with the skin variations, the type of fire that you have there. And even the cool, blue ice fire would be really neat.
Right, and then you could have purple in there as well. That would be pretty neat.
My other BlizzCon prediction, this is super off topic, but it is Janitor Leoric. Come on, you can do it.
Yeah, 50 points of bragging rights if that thing's released. Maybe even 1,000.
The cinematic for that is literally just a mop bucket and some, creaky footsteps of drudging down a bathroom floor and heavy breathing like a horror film. And then he just takes the mop out of the bucket, smashes the mop on the ground, and mops up a chopped up merc sushi.
And that's when the audience goes wild. Everything else, everyone's sitting there quiet going, okay, this is pretty cool. But that is the moment.
Absolutely. I would go crazy. My third basic ability over on this kit is called Charge. Great minds moment here, Kristen. So using this ability, the horseman will charge forward and trample any enemy heroes in his path. Trampled heroes will be pushed to the side, much like a basic ability version of a Thrall Earthquake. And I say basic ability because it won't be that much or that powerful or that length, right? We're going to hone it down so it can be a basic ability. The horseman can use this ability to reposition the enemy to move to a favorable position for his team, hopefully in a place that they will take ability damage from the flames of the vents. The horseman is unstoppable during this charge.
I like that. I like that he's unstoppable too, right? Because if he's chasing you down, nowhere in, I think, any of the lore that's come out about him since its creation can you stop him from charging you.
Right. I mean, it would be terrifying, right? And in your build too, I mean, you can only run. And even if you run, you're going to get pushed to the side, and maybe that vent that you just got pushed into is about to burst up into flames.
Oh, interesting. So that adds a really cool level to your kit because that means not only are you trying to kill people, but you're a reposition assassin. So it's really important for you to combo your attacks to make sure that everything you do is maximum damage.
Yeah, I kind of feel like my Headless Horseman kit lives in the bruiser territory, but it lives in a assassin role. So opposite of what we think bruisers do now, where they live in a warrior role, and we say, well, they do a lot of damage and they don't take a lot of hits, but they're a warrior. Well, this is an assassin that takes a lot of damage and deals a lot of damage, so more bruisery.
Yeah, I'm totally down with that, like a Thrall or a Ragnaros.
Yeah.
I love when assassins are meaty and you can actually go in without dying.
Yeah, totally, because I've been playing a lot of Illidan lately, and you go in and you die a lot. You do.
He's a very special snowflake.
And I should never play an assassin, like I said on our stream on Saturday.
It's practice, man. Assassins are practice. And different kinds of assassins are different kinds of practice. It's a whole different ball game when you do a Thrall versus an Illidan.
It really, really is. All right, let's get into some heroic abilities here. The first one I'm calling, you guessed it, Flaming Heads. So this is exactly like Kristen's ability here in a lot of ways. So the horseman will laugh loudly and summon 3 flaming heads that circle him in an endless loop. When this ability is activated again, the horseman can select a direction, kind of like a KT chain, and fire off one of the flaming heads at a target. If the head makes contact with the enemy, they'll take a large amount of damage and catch on fire, dealing damage over time. The horseman will have to use all 3 of the heads before the cooldown of this ability can begin. So you can summon your flaming heads and they start circling around you, and then you're going to then reactivate and throw these as skill shots out, but you could save one just floating by itself and then use it, and that's when your cooldown starts.
Gotcha. I like that. That kind of reduces how OP it could potentially be. Kind of like never-ending Murlocs with Murky. That cooldown does not start until you're done with your endless Murlocs. Now, would the circling skulls do any kind of area damage around him, or they only do damage once they're fired off?
That's a great question. I really wanted it to be like that too. I think that you could take a talent for this. Like if you picked it, you could make it so that you get 5 skill shots, or they do damage to people around you. Imagine if you were just a serious damage over time passively hero, where you are hitting heroes with your Q ability, and that is lighting them on fire and they're hurting their friends. You also have this flaming heads thing that's happening where, you know, you're just passively hurting people around you, and then you charge in. I mean, it's like, it's the assassin I need, but don't deserve.
I love it, dude. I love the fact that he's just setting everyone on fire. You know, he is angry at the world, and he's going to make sure everyone can see and feel his rage.
I love it. So the second heroic here is called Carved. The horseman selects an area on the battlefield and magically carves a jack-o'-lantern pattern on the floor. After a second, the carving ignites with the green flames that we all know and love of the Headless Horseman, dealing massive damage, and I mean massive damage to the enemy. These flames will stay on the battlefield for a long time, maybe even a little longer than a Hyperion or a Phoenix. And the reason for this is because there's only select areas. I'm just imagining that it looks like a jack-o'-lantern. So it's the triangle eyes, triangle nose, and then the big moon-shaped mouth, you know? And only in those areas is the fire burning.
Oh, so you'd have to be pretty darn careful with the placement, I guess.
Yeah, you'd have to really... But again, imagine if you charged straight through where the nose was and pushed all the enemies out to the side, and then maybe they're also in a bush and they're taking ticking damage from that too. I mean, it's just a assassin on easy mode.
Yeah, and I love the idea too that you'd have to become a master of mounting. This is one of those heroes you can't blame pathing for messing it up. Oh no, you are in charge of pathing with this one. And if it messes up, that's on your head because you're supposed to be able to kill your foes.
Well, if it's on your head and you're the Headless Horseman...
Is it actually on your head?
If a headless horseman is in a woods and falls over and
Do you hear his pumpkin break?
if no one's around to hear it. I totally agree. Yeah, so basically to sum up my entire kit here, we're talking about an assassin that deals high ability damage, but these abilities are out of the control of you. I mean, basically you're on fire. You are that burning rage, making the enemy team a burning rage as well for hurting their friendlies, charging in, and then you've got this ability to light the hidden places of the map on fire so that you can deal damage to people that are hiding.
Oh, and quick question about your second heroic. Would the fire do damage to buildings, or is this strictly hero damage?
Oh, let's make it do damage to buildings, right? I mean, you got to really place this thing, and it's not huge. So yeah, let's burn down the buildings.
Let's burn it all down. So would you say your build is too hot to handle?
Absolutely. Too hot to handle. I love it. But before we can call these builds completed, we got to get into the best part here, which is when we talk about specialty skins and dance moves. Let's get into Kristen's specialty skin first. What's your idea here?
Oh, this one was interesting. I went through a list of historical figures that have been decapitated, and England, that list is a long list. But anyway, so I came across the fact that apparently Blackbeard was beheaded. He died first, but then they took his head so they could collect a bounty. They tied it to the front of a ship, too. But beheaded after death, Blackbeard's spirit lives on, complete with a beard that appears to be lit on fire. He could also ride a mini ship instead of a horse.
Oh, heck yeah. This is so cool. Any sort of pirate-themed skin I've already spent my money on before it even comes out. I love pirate-themed skins.
Yeah, and in the end, I think every hero will probably have some sort of pirate theme to it, because that is one of the best, probably, sellers in the shop are all the pirate skins.
I love it. Yeah, so I did too. Also went through a list of historical, mine's fictitious characters. Historically fictitious characters that have been beheaded. And so I'm going with an undead Count Dooku skin here, who was beheaded by Anakin Skywalker.
Yes. What would he ride?
General Grievous.
Poor Grievous, man. We all thought he was so cool. He had so much potential.
He killed so many Jedis, and then his battle is like 11 seconds.
Yeah.
R.I.P.
And he had the whirlwind arms and everything.
Yeah, and Obi-Wan's just like, you know what? Ain't nobody got time for that.
Nah, Obi-Wan's got to romance his way across the galaxy, and Dooku's harsh and his mellow.
Absolutely. My second idea for a skin here would be the decapitated Queen of Hearts skin. And she would ride a flamingo.
Perfect. Now, I'm assuming the cartoon Queen of Hearts?
Uh-huh.
Nice. She was a good one. And would she still have her head, or would you change it to something else? Because I guess that's a question. A what?
A croquet ball.
There we go. Perfect.
There you go, man. Ideas just flying out here. So, Dooku or Queen of Hearts are my two ideas. For my dance move for the Headless Horseman, I said that he would start juggling flaming skulls while doing a box step. You know, all those guys are like, and now for my next trick, I'm going to juggle 5 flaming skulls.
Yes, I've seen quite a few, and I am impressed every time. But yeah, and I love the fact that he's doing a box step, too. He's a gentleman at heart.
That's right. What is your idea for a dance move here?
I thought his horse would dance. It would do a little trot. And once a true gentleman, the Headless Horseman has his mount do a cute trot, ending with a little bow when it does the leg lower thing.
Nice. Like a medieval times kind of thing, where the horses kind of do the little prancing thing.
Exactly.
I love it. It is so cool. All of these kits were so much fun, and we can say that this hero was forged.
Hero Forged.
Oh, I wanted the Headless Horseman so bad in the game when I came across that BlizzCon reveal, you know, with him there. I was like, no way, we're gonna get the Headless Horseman, and then just to find out he's a boss. I mean, they're trolling us there. They need to give it to us.
Well, we know they like trolling. That diva preview with the scratch across the dragon image. I know it was Genji, and that's one of the dragons, and I know it was Diva, and they had Diablo in there, but yeah, they're pretty good. But maybe part of that comes from the fact that there have been so many leaks. They're just having fun with it now.
Absolutely, yeah, and I'm one of those people that I don't look at the leaks. I want to be surprised when all this stuff comes out, but it's hard to avoid some of it, especially when we're doing research for this show and stuff like that. So there are some BlizzCon rumors out there that are floating around, and hopefully we get some surprises as well, which I think the teams definitely plan on to surprise all the great fans out there. So the Headless Horseman, Kristen, any last thoughts here?
I think a mounted hero is in the future, right? We have Lucio, who's technically mounted all the time. So I think if it could be done where the model is small enough and not too unwieldy on the battlefield, it's doable.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about a Lyra Windrunner about a year ago, where, you know, having this hunter sort of aspect where you would be able to be mounted and fire your basic abilities while mounted. Something like that, I cannot imagine is not being worked on.
Mm-hmm. And mounted combat is incredible. I mean, the stories from the rampage of Genghis Khan across the steppes and into China and across a huge swath of the known world, the fact they would fire the arrows as the four hooves were off the ground, that kind of thing really does capture the imagination.
Yeah, it's definitely an awesome fantasy that would be cool to see in Heroes of the Storm. All right, we're going to call the show there. We're going to wrap it up. But before we do, Kristen, where can people find you in the interwebs when you're not on this show?
In the interwebs, you can find me at Dream Destroyer, that is DRMDESTRYR, over at Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram.
Any special streaming schedule because of the BlizzCon travels?
There will be a stream Wednesday morning, and then it's off until the Tuesday after.
Very cool. Don't forget that if you're headed to BlizzCon to come to the Amove TV meetup, this will be happening at the Anaheim Hilton. Again, it's in the Palos Verdes room, and the meetup starts at 9 p.m., which is in the Anaheim Hilton, and there will be an awesome cash bar there. If you're looking for me, you can find me right here on HeroesForge. We record the show live every Sunday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on twitch.tv/AmoveTV, which you all know because you're coming to the meetup. We are part of the Amove TV entertainment and podcast group, and we are so happy and grateful to be a part of that awesome community. You can follow us on Twitter at Forge Heroes. You can check out our website, which is heroesforge.club. Send us an email if you've got an idea. Contact heroesforge@gmail.com. And also, we're getting back to featured forgers next month. We're going back into the old grind of Heroes Forge. Your favorite Blizzard characters will be making appearances again. Thank you so much to all of our patrons over on patreon.com/heroesforge. And thank you to all of our listeners out there for listening to this show week after week and for listening to our awesome Halloween experiment.
Ooh, we hope you were thoroughly spooked, but also you had fun imagining the realm beyond Blizzard IP.
Absolutely. It was a ton of fun. I had a blast. It was a great break over the last, 90 episodes before that we had done with all Blizzard heroes. I feel inspired to get back into the Blizzard battleground, so to speak.
Yeah, it'll be fun too, because this kind of allowed me to play around with what if there wasn't something that spoke to a pre-built kit that a lot of the heroes, or not heroes, but a lot of characters kind of have, right? Their personalities lend to it. So what other avenues can you take to build a kit? Is it based around story or is it based around ability?
Absolutely. That's a really good point, is when we were doing these forges, there were no abilities. Like Samara from the Ring doesn't have any abilities like Cho'Gall does inside of World of Warcraft, where you can look at the abilities. And so you have to really delve into what you want to do. And I've got some really cool ideas of Blizzard characters that we would have to do that for after doing this. So stay tuned. Some really awesome stuff is coming. We will see you all at BlizzCon in 4 days. Can you believe it? And if you're watching from home on the virtual ticket, watch for Kristen. I guarantee she will be on the screen.
Flexing. Look for the girl that's flexing.
Thank you so much for listening, everyone. Happy Halloween. Slytherin for life.
Gryffindor forever.
And we'll see you all in the real world.